introduce you to today's presenter, Dr. Virginia Gregg. Dr. Gregg teaches in the Communication Studies Department at Minnesota State University, Moorhead. Although her own education was more traditional, she was introduced to competency-based education and other non-traditional education in the early 1970s when open-door degree programs became popular with evening, Saturday, and college correspondence classes. Then in 1972, she was hired by the Teacher Education Department at Southwest Minnesota State College to work with education students and in-service teachers in the department's competency-based teacher education program. Dr. Gregg has used many techniques of the competency-based approach to teaching and learning, including broadcast journalism, television producing and directing, English as a second language, and various communication studies courses. She also implemented, interestingly, this education approach in her own company, North Coast Display and Graphics. Because of her teaching strategies and innovative business ideas, Dr. Gregg has won several education and business awards. And recently, she's been able to meld the benefits of competency-based teaching and learning with the flipped and blended teaching methods, which in a moment she will talk to you about today. So I'm going to turn this presentation over to you, Virginia.
Okay. I'll wait till I see my screen come up here. Show my screen.
It should say show my screen. There you are.
Okay. First thing I do want to say, though, before I start my slides here, is that although I do teach the Communication Studies courses mostly with this, I will be presenting it, I think, generically enough that you could apply it to any class. So let me just go back to slideshow and from beginning. Here we go. Now, this is going to be about getting your ducks in a row. Let's begin with a brief review of some of the most effective teaching and learning techniques consistent throughout the olden days and now, or at least so I think. Now, one of these methods is the flipped method. You've probably heard about that. In the olden days, back home was where kids discussed things with their parents while they were working or playing or wherever people gathered. And back then, the classroom was the fountain of new information, of processes, philosophies, and long division, and anything else that probably wasn't well known at home. But now that fountain of information is at home, or at least out of the classroom, with technology. And interestingly enough, at home, now there doesn't seem to be time to have those discussions to mull over the ideas. So it's important that in the classroom, it becomes an epicenter discussion, because when students can go through trial and error, make critical and thoughtful connections among those many things that they're now learning on the internet or in school, and basically on their own. That's the principle behind the flipped classes. Now, to properly use this technology in the flipped classes that we're seeing, there are more and more blended classrooms. And might I add that blended learning is taking place at home as well as at school. Now, students can access not only the information in the classes, but they can contact each other at home. They can do the discussions that way and work on any booklets or whatever is important at the time. And in the classroom, they can get together now and discuss, check the facts that they learned while they were at home or interacting with each other at home on the internet. And they have face-to-face connections. And all of this is just too exciting for me. And it is the flipped and the blended methods of teaching and learning. But now we have all these students who are discussing, who have all this information, and basically they're running loose with this information potential. How do we as educators harvest that without stymieing them? We need to maximize their opportunities, their potential capabilities, their excitement for success, actually, and bring this to fruition with competency-basing this program. And that actually is the focus of this webinar. Now, the competency-basing I do is in flipped and blended classrooms. So let's take a look at the details of competency-based teaching and learning. Now, competency-based education does acknowledge and accommodates the undeniable facts that there are specific students must learn. There are other things that students may want to learn. And there's different ways students learn, different rates at which they learn. There's a variety of ways to motivate students or to demotivate or discourage them. Students now have a predisposition to learn in small bits, and that's important. And they also want to see some immediate success, and that is also important. Now, competency-based education acknowledges and accommodates this unconventional teaching that allows students to work at their own rate. It has flexible sequencing for teachers. It offers a variety of optional work. They can do work over until it's correct. And believe it or not, in much of it, there's no partial points. It's all right, or it's just not done yet. Different students can work in different areas, and any student can work in several areas at the same time. And they can also experience success one step at a time. Now, we actually must face the scary fact that these lofty goals have got to be manageable and rewarding. So competency-based education acknowledges the needs of diverse students and their teachers in easy, believe it or not, documentable and, hey, yes, accessible ways. This may sound like a tall order, but really it isn't. Let me show you how I do it. I have competency-based my public speaking courses, which are also cooked and blended, with the use of D2L as our learning management system, and I use that to distribute and collect materials from students. And I also use SoftChalk for, well, everything else, I guess. But before we get into the exciting way of doing this, of teaching with competency-based education, let's get started with some basic terminology. And our mantra for the course is to earn for what you learn, you must show what you know. My students do not get grades or points until they have proven that they do know how to do something. There's no partial point. I always tell them that you don't want a heart surgeon who does your heart transplants and then kind of wipes his hands off and walks away, and you say, whoops. Somebody says, what about stitching him up? And he says, oh, I didn't pass that part. You really do have to be competent in all you know. So here's some of the terms. Competent. That's the student can do the work at the taxonomy level determined for that work, and those are included in the competency packages. Another is the learning module, and that is basically an online book that covers a concept or process and includes a variety of pictures and assessments and all that kind of thing. And that's what I use use SoftChalk for. What are these compacts that I'm talking about? Compacts are short for competency package, and it's usually just a 1 or 2 page document listing a concept or a step in a process. Remember, they like things in bits, and it has related assignments for assessment. There are different kinds of competency packages. There's a work pack, which is like a worksheet. It's really easy. A ref pack, which is a reflection paper and things they've read. Crit pack, that allows them to critique their own work or critique someone else's work. So those are some of the basic terminologies. And now we are going, we're going to go to some more here. In terms of optional work, I give my students a lot of things that they can do if they want to. They can get points for it, but in order to get the points, they've got to get 100% on it. So they can do it over until they get it right. They earn what those points now are called participation points, and they're earned for participating in your own education above and beyond what would normally be required of them. What is their required work? That's the traditional types of assignments, tests and speeches and papers. And typically they're limited to 1 attempt, and that is the grade points. That's the kind of grading or assignments and grading that we do ordinarily in traditional education. And the grade points are the grades for that required work. So we have optional work for participation points and required work for grade points. Okay, now let's take a look, out of that for a sec, at my D2L, my learning management system. And this is kind of where a lot of it starts. You will notice that the title is up to here. Now I've dubbed my class the Right to Speak class because you do have to write to be able to speak. Okay, I have all semester resources. Those are things that students can access throughout the semester, and also blocks of learning. Now let's look at one of these blocks, see what the students see. When they click on this block, they get this information. This is the work that they're going to be working on. It tells them what it's about, the time period for it, a little bit of an introductory statement. And I usually start my block with a cartoon. Now that cartoon, you know, why do we give students a variety? That cartoon does relate to something to do with communication and with the communication in that block. But it's not there just for fun and games. If you notice right down here, there is a ref pack, a reflection package. The student can click on that and get a document that they can complete based on that quiz, or that cartoon, I mean. The cartoon is repeated there for them. They have, the points are listed. Now here's another thing I do, and I suppose it doesn't have to do as much with competency basing as it does with me, but I usually put a different color where they put their names in. The students will comment that they like to do the work because they don't know which color it's going to pop up in. But that's just a total aside. But they can do that, and then they can Dropbox it here. Notice the little VB, it's optional. They can Dropbox it. And I give by dates. And I'll mention this now, but we might talk about it again later. By means you do it at this date in order to kind of keep up with everything. It is not a hard and fast date. If they did this a week later, that still is fine. But down here we have due dates. Those are hard and fast dates that they have to get the work in. Here are my learning modules. I do divide the courses into modules of text reading. And in this case, where they're preparing for speech, I also have a learning module, an LM. These are what I make with SoftChalk. Let's take a peek at one of these. All right. This is what the students see when they open it up. And as you can tell, I use a variety of colors, of pictures. I can lay it out any way I want to. And here's a feature I love. It's the iframe, where I can place an article from someplace else inside of here. So this happens to be a 14-page article, and I've got it in just this little block. So students do not have to leave my learning module to see this. If they do want a copy of it, however, they can go right up here into, well, that's a copy of this page. They can go right here into more resources and get a copy of the flipped article, a flipped classroom article, and they can print it out or just read it that way if they want to. Some of the other things that are included in this one is our assessments. Now, the student will click on here, go through a series of questions, and I want to show you the end of this, so I'm actually going to have to take time excuse me, to click through all 10 questions. And you'll notice while I'm doing this, that this quiz group is made up of true, false, multiple choice, multiple answer. There could be a variety of other kinds of things that was made up with also. Now the student, when we get to the end, they can check their answers. So now, of course, I got them all wrong, yay me, but they can look here, and I can have provided feedback in here. So if they do get it wrong, they can look at feedback for more answers, and they can also go back and retry the work, which is another great option for them. Remember, they have to get 100% on all the quizzes in here in order to pass. This score here will tell them right off the bat, if they want to know their rewards, what they got on that particular score, and down here in the corner, what they got from the entire learning module. Evidently, there's going to be 39 items in this module. So once they've completed that, then they can continue through the rest of the document. But let's go back to, oh, no. There's one thing that's really interesting here that I want to tell you about these assessments. Let me look at, I'll look at, tell which one it's going to be. We'll see if it's this one. Yes, it is. When I create the quizzes in quiz groups, and this is really important for me in competency basing, notice that when I hit the page with the quiz group, the quiz didn't show up. I opted to hide the group. I don't I didn't want the students to be faced with questions smack dab in their face right when they went to that page. They go to the page, then they can click on the quiz so it opens for them. I've selected to have them take one at a time as opposed to seeing all of them at once. I've also asked that they be presented in random order, which I like, especially since they can do the quizzes over. I have an option for feedback, an option for retry, and to me this is just, an excellent feature for this program. So now, let us go back. I'm going to my PowerPoint or to D2L. Let's look at D2L up here. And we're going to look at another learning module here. I'm going to go to another block. Block 2 on the basic structure. Another cartoon, a different color. Students sometimes refer to their blocks by color. And another learning module. And this one is an introduction to a series of learning modules. And sometimes they need to do them in series. So, if we take a look at that one, notice first of all that they can drop off their certificate. This one also has 2 other drop boxes for a work pack and a competency package. They're both optional. They're also housed right inside of this learning module. So we go to this one, and I'll show you first where the competency package is housed. And I can actually put this in my table of contents, which is nice, if they want to go directly to it for some reason. We look at this one. Look at what you can do again. I've embedded it so they don't actually have to open it to see what it's going to be all about. They can check it out here and continue reading, or they can go back up and do a printable copy of it if they wish. But let's go back to that first page. You saw something up there. It's a little slideshow booklet kind of thing. In this first unit here, we introduce them to things. And this is really important with competency-based. You've really got to give the students a reason for why they are doing what they're doing. And I'm asking them, what if you were on the job the first time you had to give a speech? And so this will help me show things and take them through, are you going to end up like this with a blank page? Or like this where you don't know what in the heck is going on. You don't know how to organize it. But I'm telling them they're in school, they get to practice these kinds of things. And I introduce here the series of 5 learning modules they'll get, and then they'll all be happy campers. So that's one thing that's in here, in this learning module. Another thing I have in here are videos. Here we go to page 2. Down here, they can just click on this, and I'm going to talk over this, maybe turn my audio down just a little bit here. Because I'm not going to have you listen to the whole thing, but I'm just going to drive you through part of it, where you can see that now I'm introducing this unit. Again, for competency-based, they really need to know where they're going and how they're getting there. Notice at the bottom here I have facts and frogs. You know what facts are, frequently asked questions. Well, believe it or not, frogs are frequent responses or defer. So I have the students write their own questions on a wiki or on a bulletin board of some sort, and then they attempt to answer each other's questions to help each other out. But I can put videos any place inside of this learning module. That probably is all I need to show you on this one. Now, with competency-based education, it is very important that you hit the students in a lot of different ways. You've got to be able to get the ones that are orally oriented, visually oriented, a variety of things like that. So let me show you, here, I'll do this one, another learning module. See what else we've done. Now this is the 3rd one in the series. And again, you notice the picture that was in that introduction. Reproduce the picture here. Got some graphics I've made, put here in SoftChalk. And they have another video here that they can go and listen to. Then They have an assessment. Here's another quiz. Again, it doesn't smack them in the face. They can just click on here. And there it is. They can go through that. Several other videos in here and several other learning modules. So those are some of the things that can happen inside a learning module. Now, where does all this
for a second, Virginia?
You betcha.
Okay, there's some questions about how this is built or what you're showing. Right now, I just want to point out, you are showing a SoftChalk created content piece inside of the Desire to Learn learning management system.
Right.
And so some people were wondering, what's where, and I thought maybe just making that point right now would clarify that question, because several people have asked something like that. So okay. I just want to clarify, and I will send it back to you.
All right, all this picture stuff and quiz stuff and video stuff that you're looking is inside one learning module, and that learning module was right here in my learning management system, which in this case happens to be D2L. So I've put all of that together, and instead of having the students go all over for it, different places for quizzes, different places for videos, I can embed the entire thing in here. And then any work that they do, or like when they take all the quizzes, they get a certificate, and they can drop box that, which tells me automatically that they've got 100% on their score. I don't have to grade anything. The only way to get that certificate, and they're kind of nice-looking certificates. This might be the score. So, this is a score report. I took out the student's name. But it says that they got 100% on it. Unless it shows 100% or it shows the certificate itself, they don't get the point. So here they went through anywhere from 10 or 15 or 36 or 114 questions, whatever I put in that learning module. They need to get 100% of all of them. It is self-graded. They can Dropbox this. All I have to do then is go to the Dropbox, see who's got them, and award them their points for it. I do not have to grade them, which is really nice in this case. So this again is another learning module. If you had questions about it, I'll show you again. Here's the D2L system. That's what this is. Here is the learning module. Okay, I did look at this one already. Various pages in it. This one has competency packages layered to it, as you can see in the table of contents. It has videos in it, as you can see up here also. The students go from page 1 down to the end and do this work. When they're done, it's easy enough for them to just flip out of it. They're right back into D2L, so it's pretty seamless that way, and that's one of the reasons I like it a lot. But let us go and look back at my PowerPoint for a minute. I think I might have covered some of these things already. Whoops, there goes slideshow from the beginning. Oh, not from the beginning. That was silly. Slideshow. I'm going to flip through here a little bit to where it was. At the time. Sorry, Steve. I knew I would do that sooner or later. Okay, so here's the slideshow. We'll pick it up from here. We talked about this, the optional work and the grade points, etc. Now, I told you about the due dates. We did talk about that. And when I have a by date on that D2L system, students know that they should do it by then to keep up. And if they don't, it's okay to do it later. But then there's due dates that are just hard and fast dates. The work is sequenced. It's presented in learning modules again, and certification is required, but there are deadlines are flexible. There's a variety of optional work. Students can go into other learning modules and work at the same time, on more than one at the same time, and they may do work over. As a matter of fact, much of the work has to be done over if it's not right the first time. And that includes work that we grade as well as work that is self-graded. They get their points in this work when they reach 100% on it. And believe it or not, students really do work. They like seeing that 100%, and all of these things are in little bits and pieces. In other words, there may be 20 steps to something. Instead of just teaching the big concepts and the big picture and saying, go for it, we teach every single little step, and they've got to be competent in each one of the areas. When they're competent, look at this part here, I really like this. When the work is complete, the student is competent. I don't care if it took one student 3-4 times to do it over to get it right versus someone who got it right the first time. I don't care if it took them 3 weeks or someone else got it done the first day. In the end, they both know the information. They're both competent. I mentioned they can work in a variety of different areas at the same time.
Virginia, a quick question. How do you know how many times they try? Do you ever see that information?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I have that so that it's logged through my my learning management system.
Do you ever come across a student who just won't give it another shot? That's one of the questions. How do you get your students to do it over?
They don't get the points until it's right. So
okay.
they're going to do it over, and if there's a question, there can be 130 questions and one question that is holding them back. They just can't seem to get it. They will email each other or email me and ask for, they know better than to ask for the answer, but they'll ask, where do we find this information, where do we get it? I'll help them out. They'll go back and retake the test, get their score in Dropbox, and then a lot of times they'll still email me and say, yay, I did it.
Yay, all right.
They're very oriented to results. And when the challenge is put in front of them and they know it can be documented, such as the points, they do it. I'm going to jump just a little bit ahead here since you asked this question.
Yeah, there's a bunch of questions related to this issue that maybe we should pause for a moment, if you don't mind, and work with.
Okay.
And, part of it is, does everybody get an A?
No.
I mean, is there any work on? Is there anybody work graded on the quality of the work? Those kinds of questions, which are sort of related to the way that this competence-based program works.
Oh, yes. For example, there's many things that we do have to grade. They're not self-graded. For example, if a student were to do an introduction to a speech, and one of the things they had to have was an attention getter, another was common ground with the audience. They learn about all these through the learning module. They're quizzed on them in there, but then when it actually comes to their speech, we actually look at it, and we'll tell them, you know, this can be stronger, you can relate more here. And also, that's where they work in groups in the classroom. They'll bring copies of the work that they're working on in these learning modules and sit in small groups and help each other be better, have stronger sentences, have more focused thoughts. So the level is quite high. You know, I'm thinking that probably one of the things, most of this I think can be optional. Here, right here, we're getting at it, where I tell you about how the grading works, how the assessment of it works. Was that one of the questions we were getting at?
Yes.
Okay.
There's lots of questions on grading and several comments about, oh my goodness, if they got to do it over and over and over, the grading load would be amazing. But it's all self-graded.
Well, I tell you what, though. I tell you what. If every single student in the class ended up getting everything right, is that a bad thing? Or are we so tied to grades that certain students have to fail? You know?
Oh,
and now,
right.
Now, some students do fail. Some will not do all the work. Some will attempt to do the grading work, the graded work without doing the optional work, and they won't do as well on it. Maybe if I go through this example here about what's in the blocks, and this goes right into grading, so we'll jump to that. So each block has learning. It has all these things inside of it. There are certifications that are in there. Notice there's reflectional optional papers they can do, optional quizzes they can do, a variety of things that they can do. And then they come to what is required. Now, the speech is required, it needs an outline, a bibliography, an audience analysis, a PowerPoint, and delivery. But they've had learning modules that took them through all that information. These will be one-shot deals. They do the speech once, they hand in these papers once, and they're graded on it in more of a traditional sense. Now, a lot of the more ambitious students who've done the work will come out very high on this. Some students will not have done any of the optional work and will just go right to this and attempt to do the speech, and they may or may not hit, they'll hit a variety of different levels of success. But see, now it's their choice. The information was there. They could have taken opportunity to go through it. It isn't, with SoftChalk learning module, I can give them a whole bunch of information that doesn't take them very long to get through. And they've got a variety of ways of seeing it with videos, with PowerPoints, with printouts, with whatever. But now, here this shows that in order to get this work done, they went through all these different things. And they had those opportunities to learn it before it's tested. And to me, that is the proper way to teach. Get them competent first and then grade them. Now we're going to do a comparison to the traditional way of grading. In this case, the student has, this is competency-based. They have grade points for their final testing, but they've racked up a series of participation points to prove what they were learning in the process. Now, here's a bit about learning and grading. Your grades are your scores, and students in the traditional class listen, read, write, discuss like everyone else. They do papers, and they're graded. They do quizzes, and they're graded. They do tests, and they're graded. They do reports, and they're graded, and whatever else. All of those things then are melded together, and they're given a grade for the course. But all of these are tests. Who assessed the learning process? What were the students encouraged to do to get to this point? That's where competency-based takes over. Many times, if the teacher says that the grades are too low, they adjust their grading or they adjust their assignment. So now maybe the grades are going to come in a little bit higher. Maybe the final grade will be higher. But that's an adjustment in grading, and not necessarily reflective of what students have actually learned. But when we go to competency-based, we have more of a motivated learning and grading style. The students, of course, still listen, read, write, discuss at home, in the classroom, and they still have graded papers, quizzes, tests, reports, and whatever. But before they get to that paper, for example, they're going to do a bunch of little papers. They're going to do a bunch of little quizzes. They're going to do a lot of things that they may get 100% on. If they do, they get some extra points. But they're testing themselves to see if they're ready for the real test. So they get, let's say, 5 participation points for each of these. Now, they may have done several competency packages in their build-up to the speech. They may have taken several quizzes. They may have done a lot of other things. But they know where they stand on each single little step of it. Now, they earn, however many points they can earn as they go through that thing. I require students to have 50 participation points as part of their course grade. I have students right now, and we're just at midterm, who have almost 150 points. That means 100 points beyond what they're required to do, mainly because of the carrot of these little 5 participation points or reaching that 100% and getting the certificate. Also, knowing that as they do this and earn points, their real tests, their real reports, their real speeches will definitely be better. So, if we look at this, the grading now for competency-based education, let's say they got 375 out of 500 on regular graded work. And this student in particular, let's say, only got 80 participation points throughout the semester. 50 of those participation points go into the grade, so that changes that 375 to 425. All right, but now they have 30 points left over. This is why the students like these extra points. That 30 extra participation points counts 3 to 1 into their grade points. So 30 participation points equals 10 grade points. So now instead of having 425, they've got 435. So that's not a lot of extra points for the work that they have to do. Remember the competency packages that I showed you and the quizzes and things inside of them? Some of those quizzes or some of those competency packages have over 100 questions. When they Dropbox that certificate, for over 100 questions, they might get 10 participation points. That equals only 3 grade points, but they still want to do it. Once in a while, they'll say to me, isn't this a lot of work for very few points? And my response to that is, not really, because you are supposed to be doing this work anyway to learn. It's just that I'm giving you a few token points for it. In any class, you need to be studying like this in order to learn. And they do buy into that. I had students come to me the other day and say, you know, I've been taking all these history classes, and I read the chapter, and then we take a quiz, and I get a grade on it. But he says, now I'm scared. And I said, scared of what? He says, when I do a learning module, you will have a quiz on probably every other page. But when I take that quiz, I might not get all those answers right on this very simple material. And on just one page that I just read, I might have to do that quiz over. And so they're starting to realize that they need better reading skills, better understanding skills. And so he continued and said, I am afraid that I'm just not learning in my history class, because now I read one page in history and say, what question could I answer from this? And he says, I can't even think of a question. So it creates a whole new awareness of learning. But the competencies that the students achieve are actual and they're ongoing. The learning is assessed and documentable. I have all their competency packages in the Dropboxes. Their work is on them. The points that they get for them. So now this was getting our ducks in a row with competency-based in a very short amount of time. We talked about the flipped learning, where students learn at home and discuss in class. The blended learning, where we mix different technologies, both at home and in the classroom. And then competency-based, where students go step by step by step through a series of quizzes and competency packages inside a learning module, not as a graded activity, but as an activity to learn. Then their graded testing comes after that. Does that explain it a little better?
I think so, but I have to admit you have created a lot of energy around your conversation. And the latest one, the last questions that came from Cynthia is she'd like to see your syllabus, because there's a concern that there might be confusion in the minds of students in terms of how all this plays out. And so I guess you might want to discuss that, and go ahead.
Okay, it is a difficult thing. Let me show you how I start the semester. To go back to that getting started, that block 1. That first module you saw was all about the learning module. They read that. They take quizzes on what that was. The flipped, blended, and competency-based system, I go through all of that with them on one of the learning modules. They're quizzed on that. And the guidelines, resources, and syllabus. And there's 100-some questions in here, but they need to go through that. Now, this is required, and they have to get 100% on it by the time they're done. So by the time they get through these 3 things, they pretty well have a good idea of what they're getting into. Here, for example, is my front page for my syllabus. But let's look at what it covers. These are the course data. There's a quiz on it. In class versus online, there's a quiz on it. The learning outcomes that we have for the class, there's a quiz on it. The attendance policy, there's a quiz on it. The speeches that they give, you know, there's a quiz on it. And this will be laid out. Whoops, what did I do here? Oh, I went to the quiz. Where was that? That's delivery, preparation, required speeches. Okay, that's all laid out for them. They know how much each is worth. They know you know, what they have to do to get there. Also, one thing I didn't show you, and Steve, I don't have it ready. I mean, I could get it, but it's called a learning line. in the competency packages for a speech, for example, it'll have a series of, oh shoot, wish I had it.
Yeah, no problem. Just to talk about it for a moment, because we're getting to the point where we should go more seriously into the Q&A anyway. So.
Okay, all right.
So, I mean, there's a bunch of questions, and I don't even know where to start. Let's start from the first one that was asked. How do you arrange the blocks? Are they week by week? Are there assignment due? Is there flexibility in the assignments? And how long is the class? Is it the traditional, kind of 15-week kind of class? And what is the due dates for assignments and the like?
Mm-hmm. Well, I have done this class, or taught both on the quarter system and on the semester system. So you can, of course, you've got to make adjustments anywhere, in anything like that. Now, my weeks, like this is 1 week long. If it ends up taking longer, I may even change this to say week 1 and week 2, and I might go to week 2 and call it week 3, if that's what happens, and the students are okay with that. Now, in this one, I think it's the third block, automatically covers 2 weeks. It takes a couple weeks to get through this material. Again, there's learning modules and things inside of here, the text readings and all that the students can go through. So how do I lay it out? I lay it out pretty much like I've laid out traditional classes. The thing that's different is that now instead of saying to the students, write the introduction to a speech, bring it to class, and we'll talk about it on Friday, I might say on Monday, here's a learning module. It's going to take you through all the central ideas, the thesis statement, the common ground, the credibility. It's going to take you through all of those, and it's going to test you on all those. Now go through that and do that work, and for that you'll get a few participation points. Then on Friday, come with your written introduction so we can discuss it. Those introductions are very good at that point. I've saved a whole bunch of time instead of just seeing them on Friday and telling them now how to go back and do this better. They've taught themselves how to do it at home or wherever they are through these learning modules. Because the learning modules, yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, I don't want to cut you off. There's just other questions I wanted to get to. I'm sorry.
Sure.
One of the questions about speeches. Are the speeches part of the flipped in-classroom portion? Are they downloaded to you somehow?
Well,
that piece handled?
My in-class classes are blended. I teach the exact same class, now get this, with this exact same D2L. They share it with my online students, share it with my in-class students. But the difference is that the online students, excuse me, they need to get an audience of between 6 to 10 people, and they do show those on camera. They've got a whole learning module on how to record these and what's expected. So there's, shortcuts for training that way. Then they Dropbox them in a big Dropbox. They each have their own file in that Dropbox, and they put them in there. I review them then on my own as opposed to in the classroom. Now, here's another thing that you might be interested in, and that is that in the classroom, the students are recorded also. And they have Dropboxes, and after we record their speech, we put them in their Dropbox. Because all the students now have an option to go back and critique their speech. Again, these critiques are in a learning module. They're showing what to look for, how to look for it, and then reflect on it and comment on it. So they can earn points that way. So a second speech is automatically better with this type of a system than just, having 2 speeches in a row without them actually doing some critical thinking in between time, actually looking at themselves, filling out a form saying, yes, I did, no, I didn't, or I did it this way, and that's okay. We live by the ROT theory. ROT means rules of thumb, and they're taught that they've got to learn the rules very hard, or very well. But in the end, if they live by those, they'll rot in the business. They've got to learn how to break them, and break them within the law, and with finesse and with creativity. But they have to know the rule before they can break it. So I will have students at the end who will I had phenomenal speeches where we might not hear the real pieces of their speech until the speech is over. And then it takes us all aback. And we're like, oh my gosh, that's really what she meant. So there's, go ahead.
I was going to say, Virginia, on
every
that
time
note,
you do a long pause, I think you're ready for another question. Becky, do you have something you want to follow
yeah,
up on?
I do. You know, talking about your speeches, for your online students, they record them, but do the other students have access to them?
Well, we have some, we're trying to work on some FERPA laws with that, of making them available to each other.
Correct.
You know, even if you can make your own box on YouTube and things like that,
Right.
where the public doesn't see them, but who's to say student A won't copy student B's video and do something with it?
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
And so I'm struggling with that, and what I have done in the meantime is told students that they can share their own video. They can do it on their own. If they want to rack up some points by critiquing someone else's speech, they need to actually get that speech from another person.
Excellent. Steve?
Yeah, there's a couple of questions about accessibility. I mean, is accessibility, ADA type compliance, an issue that you've had to address? I know that SoftChalk spent a lot of time making sure the content it creates can be accessible, but I'm not sure how much you use that and what the issues are.
Well, I'm starting to use it. I'm starting to use it a lot more. For example, there are, like all of these cartoons even are explained so that a person with the right screen reader can go over them and see what and hear what they are, or whatever the case may be. I don't have it all done yet. Now, SoftChalk also provides a reader service, where I can, if I code my content properly, I can have an icon or something on there that the student who wants to hear it can click on it and hear the content. I'm going through quality management. Have you heard of that program?
Quality Matters? Quality Matters,
yes. I'm sorry. And trying to adapt this whole course to the Quality Matters certification.
Yeah, they have a very good job, do a very good job of creating a rubric for that, for all those issues, you know, about creating the appropriate syllabus and goals and accessibility. Part of the accessibility question, where did I want to go from here? How to do, I know. You said that there is a Read Speaker, which is a product you can use inside SoftChalk to actually read the content for you. But, you know, SoftChalk creates content out of the box that a screen reader like JAWS will read without difficulty, and you can add alternate text to the images, etc. So that's the case.
Yeah, I'm experimenting with a variety of things. I'm not there completely yet.
I'm going to ask one more question or make one more comment, and then we really need to move on. We will try to take a look at some of the questions that you've answered and haven't had time to respond to. So do not give up hope, folks out there, that we haven't responded to your questions. I told you at the very beginning that Virginia was not going to show you how SoftChalk content was authored. It turns out that in one small incident she did. She showed you about the quiz group, and that was part of the SoftChalk authoring piece. So, you know, there is a little piece of authoring that did come as part of this. And right now what I'd like to do is take back the presenter piece and show my screen and ask Becky to talk a little bit about NISOD, because I think you'll be really interested in hearing what NISOD is and what NISOD does and about their conference. Becky?
Sure. Thanks, Virginia. By the way, the comment list was that you did an impressive job. People are very overwhelmed with what you've done. Several of the comments were like, how long did this take you? And so I know you were talking, but the job you've done has been just absolutely amazing. And let me talk for just a minute about the NISOD 35th International Conference on Teaching and Leadership Excellence. It will be hosted in Austin from May 26th through 29th. I know that's over Memorial Day weekend, and it's a great way to kick off your summer for those of you who are off work the summer. Virginia
and
will
Austin's
be here.
A great place to spend the weekend, I will tell you.
You bet, you bet. Of course, you might experience a little bit of the Texas heat, but the bulk of the conference is in the Hilton in the Austin Convention Center, and great music, featuring a jam session this year, some good barbecue, and Steve will be there as well. We have keynote speakers, and one thing NYSOD does an excellent job of is honoring excellence. And so you see the Excellence Medallion on your screen, and these are winners that are nominated by our member colleges, and it's a really great way to award those who excel on your campus. All are self-nominated and then turned into us. So we do we make a big deal of that. And so the conference is probably, we expect 1,500, 1,800 attendees, and will be of interest to anybody in community college or higher ed. Steve, I think that covers it. NYSOD stands for the National Institute for Staff and Organizational Development. And we do have membership with community, technical, and junior college. We actually have a few members that are university members as well, and some proprietary schools. So, and we are managed by the University of Texas College of Education.
Well, if some of the listeners today want their questions answered, I believe I'm presenting a seminar on competency-basing at your conference.
Yes,
right,
you
exactly.
are.
Virginia is one of the presenters, so if you want to know more or speak directly to her, come to Austin over Memorial Day. You'll get to do that.
And you love the music all over.
Come to Austin to the NYSOD conference over Memorial Day. It's even better.
Yeah, even better. There's something more to do there then. Let me just start to wind up by letting you know that this is part of a series. And we had a session 2 weeks ago on flipping a high school level chemistry course, which was excellent. This session is being recorded and will be up on our website over the next day or two, so you will be able to get the link to that. The other piece is that you'll get an email in the next day or two that will have a link to the archive of this webinar. And we have 2 more coming up, flipping the manufacturing education. That is not really well described. This is a National Science Foundation grant that is a Center for Excellence in terms of teaching and retraining. So we're teaching college-level students and retraining automotive workers. It's really an exciting program, and I hope you will join us. And, of course, we've got the last session on April 10th talking about why this all works. What are the theories behind why the flipping the classroom should work? So I hope that you will go there, and the link at the bottom shows you where you can see them. But basically, just go to our website to learn more, and to webinars and innovators, and you will click through and find this session. There are a lot of questions out there about SoftChalk, SoftChalk Create, SoftChalk Cloud, what the differences are, what the advantages of one or the other are, and I really encourage you to go to one of our introductory seminar or webinars, and so that's available. We've got extensive training online, from videos to short courses and tutorials, and of course, just go to softchalkcloud.com and get a 30-day free trial, and you can sort of see what the magic is yourself. So finally, one more thanks to Virginia. Wonderful job. A lot of content here and a lot of really impressive reactions from our gallery. So I'm certain that that was well done. In a follow-up email, you will get not only information about where the archive is, but you will get information about how to contact us, how to contact Dr. Gregg. That is her email, but we will send that to you separately. There's information about how to contact Becky at NYSOD. There's information about contacting us in general to learn more. And if you want to talk to me, I'm Steve at softchalk.com. And I want to